If you had to explain yourself less, would people respect you more? Because the strongest people in the room aren't loud, defensive, or emotional. They're calm. They pause. And their silence speaks before their words ever do. Emotional independence begins the moment validation stops being your fuel. Most people don't realize how much of their behavior is driven by the need to be seen, approved, reassured, or chosen. They think they are making decisions freely, but underneath, there is a quiet dependency shaping their reactions. A tone change can ruin their day. A delayed reply can trigger anxiety. A small disagreement can feel like rejection. When validation is the currency, every interaction becomes a negotiation for worth. And peace becomes something other people control without even knowing it. When you rely on validation, you react quickly. You explain too much, you defend yourself even when no attack was made. You feel pressure to correct misunderstandings immediately, because silence feels like loss. Emotional independence interrupts this pattern. It removes urgency. It creates space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where calm control is born. Calm control is not about suppressing emotion. It's about choosing not to let emotion drive behavior. An emotionally independent person still feels disappointment, irritation, attraction, and frustration. But those feelings are not allowed to hijack dignity. They are acknowledged internally instead of acted out externally. This is why emotionally independent people appear steady even in tense moments. They are not scrambling to stabilize how others see them, so their nervous system stays regulated. The need for validation makes people predictable. Praise makes them lean in. Disapproval makes them shrink or fight. Silence makes them overperform. Emotional independence breaks this predictability. When you no longer depend on external affirmation, your behavior stops being a response and starts being a choice. You don't need to win every conversation. You don't need to be right in every disagreement. You don't need to be liked by everyone to feel secure in yourself. Reaction is fast, emotional, and outward focused. Calm control is slow, grounded, and inwardly anchored. Reaction seeks relief, calm control seeks alignment. When someone challenges you and you are emotionally dependent, the body reacts first. Heart rate increases, words rush out, explanations stack on top of each other. The goal becomes to restore comfort as quickly as possible. When you are emotionally independent, the challenge is processed before it is answered. You listen fully, you pause. You decide whether a response is even necessary. This pause is often misinterpreted by others. Some mistake it for indifference. Some mistake it for power. Some feel unsettled by it because they are used to emotional access. But the pause is not a tactic. It is a byproduct of not needing to prove anything. When validation is no longer required, silence becomes safe. Emotionally independent people don't outsource their self-worth. Compliments are appreciated but not absorbed as identity. Criticism is considered but not internalized as truth. This creates a remarkable kind of stability. Their mood doesn't swing dramatically based on feedback. Their sense of self doesn't inflate with praise or collapse with disapproval. This consistency is what others feel as calm control. Calm control also changes how conflict is handled. Instead of escalating, emotionally independent people de-escalate naturally. They don't mirror chaos. They don't raise their voice to match intensity. They don't rush to correct every false assumption. They understand that not every misunderstanding deserves energy. Sometimes clarity comes later. Sometimes it never needs to come at all. The removal of validation seeking also changes attachment dynamics. When you don't need constant reassurance, you stop overgiving. You stop chasing. You stop adjusting yourself to maintain connection. This often shifts power in relationships, not because you are trying to gain it, but because you are no longer afraid of losing approval. People can feel when access to you is optional rather than demanded, and that changes how they show up. Reaction often comes from fear of loss. Loss of image, loss of connection, loss of control. Emotional independence reduces this fear because self-worth is not attached to outcomes. If someone misunderstands you, you can tolerate it. If someone pulls away, you don't collapse. If someone challenges you, you don't feel erased. This tolerance is not emotional numbness. It is emotional resilience. Calm control is also visible in decision-making. Validation-driven decisions prioritize how things will look. Emotionally independent decisions prioritize how things will feel long-term. Instead of asking, "How will this be received?" the question becomes, "Is this aligned with who I am?" This shift quietly eliminates a lot of unnecessary drama, because many conflicts are born from trying to manage perception instead of honoring truth. People often confuse emotional independence with emotional distance, but they are not the same. Emotional distance avoids connection to avoid pain. Emotional independence allows connection without fear. You can be close without clinging. You can care without losing yourself. You can love without bargaining your peace. This is why emotionally independent people feel safe to be around. There is no hidden pressure to perform, reassure, or rescue. When reaction is replaced by calm control, communication changes. Words become fewer but more precise. Explanations become optional rather than compulsive. Boundaries are stated simply, without emotional charge. There is no need to convince. There is no need to chase agreement. The message stands on its own. The absence of validation seeking also reduces internal noise. The mind is quieter when it's not constantly scanning for approval or rejection. This mental clarity makes it easier to observe situations objectively. You see patterns instead of taking things personally. You notice behavior without attaching it to your worth. This observation strengthens calm control because clarity reduces emotional overwhelm. Emotionally independent people still care about others, but they don't let others decide how they feel about themselves. This distinction is subtle but powerful. Care becomes a choice, not a compulsion. Empathy exists without self-abandonment. Support is given without resentment. When you are no longer trying to earn value, your energy becomes cleaner and more intentional. Reaction drains energy because it is reactive and repetitive. Calm control conserves energy because it is deliberate. This is why emotionally independent people often seem less exhausted by social dynamics. They are not constantly managing impressions, repairing perceived damage, or replaying conversations in their head. Their attention stays anchored in the present instead of scattered across imagined judgments. The most noticeable shift happens internally. You stop feeling the urge to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop rehearsing conversations that haven't happened yet. You stop needing immediate closure. This internal stillness is what allows calm control to exist externally. Emotional independence does not make you untouchable. It makes you unmovable in ways that matter. Situations still affect you, but they don't define you. Opinions still exist, but they don't command you. When validation is no longer the driver, reactions soften, responses sharpen, and presence becomes steady in a way that doesn't demand attention but naturally holds it. Silent authority is built the moment you stop explaining yourself to earn comfort. Explanations feel polite, reasonable, and mature. But most excessive explaining is not communication. It is a request for permission. It is an attempt to manage how others feel about your choices. When your sense of safety depends on being understood, boundaries become flexible and authority disappears quietly. Boundaries do not require consensus. They require clarity. The more you explain a boundary, the more negotiable it sounds. Each extra sentence opens a door for debate, justification, and emotional bargaining. Silent authority understands this instinctively. It sets limits without emotional leakage. It states what is and allows others to react however they choose. People often overestimate how much explanation is needed. They believe clarity comes from detail, when in reality, clarity comes from consistency. A boundary repeated calmly without added reasoning becomes solid over time. A boundary explained differently every time becomes unstable. Silent authority relies on repetition, not persuasion. Explanations are often driven by fear of being misjudged. There is a subtle hope that if others just understand your reasons, they will approve, comply, or stop pushing. But authority weakens the moment it depends on approval. Boundaries backed by explanation lean outward for validation. Boundaries backed by self-trust stand on their own. When someone crosses a boundary and you respond with a long explanation, you teach them that access to you includes access to your emotional labor. They learn that resistance earns them more of your energy. Silent authority removes this incentive. It does not reward boundary testing with attention. It responds simply and consistently, which makes repeated testing unrewarding. Explanations also create hierarchy confusion. When you explain excessively, you unconsciously position the other person as the judge of your decision. Silent authority corrects this dynamic by removing the courtroom entirely. There is no case to argue, there's only a line that exists. This does not mean being cold or dismissive, it means being clear without being porous. Silent authority can be kind, calm, and respectful while still being firm. The firmness comes not from tone, but from the absence of self-doubt. People can sense when a boundary is rooted in certainty rather than defensiveness. Boundaries protect energy. Explanations drain it. Every time you justify yourself, you re-engage emotionally with something that already has an answer. Silent authority understands that energy is finite. It chooses where to invest it and where to withhold it. This selectiveness creates presence. Presence creates weight. Many people confuse authority with dominance, but dominance is loud and reactive. Authority is quiet and stable. Dominance pushes. Authority holds. Boundaries are the structure that allows authority to exist without force. They define where you end and others begin, without aggression or apology. Silent authority also changes how people approach you. When explanations are removed, manipulation loses effectiveness. Guilt, pressure, and urgency rely on emotional access. Clear boundaries limit that access. People may not like it at first, but they adjust. Those who respect themselves learn to respect you. Those who relied on your flexibility reveal themselves. Explanations often escalate conflict. Each reason invites a counter-reason. Each clarification invites another challenge. Silent authority avoids this spiral by refusing to enter it. It understands that not every disagreement needs resolution. Some simply need distance. Boundaries spoken once and enforced consistently become part of your identity. People learn what is available and what is not. They stop asking the same questions. They stop pushing the same limits. This is not because you convinced them, but because your behavior stopped changing under pressure. Silent authority is especially visible under stress. When emotions rise, many people explain more, talk faster, and soften boundaries to relieve tension. Authority does the opposite. It slows down. It says less. It trusts the boundary to hold without emotional reinforcement. This silence can be uncomfortable for others. They may fill it with assumptions. They may test it with provocation. Silent authority allows this without rushing to correct the narrative. It understands that time reveals truth more effectively than argument. Boundaries without explanation also protect self-respect. You no longer have to betray your intuition to sound reasonable. You no longer have to over-intellectualize emotional truths. You honor your internal signals without translating them into language that others can debate. Over time, this creates internal alignment. What you feel, what you say, and what you do stop contradicting each other. This congruence is what people experience as strength, not the strength of control, but the strength of coherence. Silent authority does not seek to be understood by everyone. It seeks to be consistent with itself. This consistency becomes predictable in the best way. Others know where you stand, even if they don't like it, even if they disagree. When explanations fall away, boundaries become cleaner. When boundaries become cleaner, relationships become cleaner. Relationships become cleaner. Some connections deepen, others fall away. Silent authority accepts both outcomes without panic. The power of silent authority is not in what you say, but in what you no longer feel compelled to say. The absence of explanation signals self-trust. Self-trust signals stability. Stability creates authority without demand, without force, without noise.